Allison, let's play a little game. I'm gonna read a book title for you,
Mm,
and
okay.
I want your reaction. Okay, so
Okay.
here the book is titled "50 Things Every Young Lady Should Know: What to Do, What to Say, How to Behave."
I love it. Sounds like a book I would love to write. I've never seen this book, so
Okay,
I'm intrigued.
when do you think this book was written?
1950s, I don't know.
Wow, spot on. Yeah, yeah. So I think this book first came out in 1955. It's an etiquette book, right? It's an etiquette book for young ladies.
Hmm.
There's been later publications. I don't know. Do you think anyone's still buying or reading this book?
Oh, yes, I do. I think there's a huge resurgence
Really?
in interest, yes, in this kind of
Okay.
thing because there's a huge pendulum swing happening.
Mhm.
Not for, a, I wouldn't say for the majority of secular people, but I think that secular people, women, are learning slowly the importance of manners, etiquette,
Mhm.
sweet demeanor, inner radiance, which comes not from shopping at Sephora or at the local mall, but from character building. And so I would think that a book like this might be
Mhm.
interesting to some women, but I think it's a slow progression, but this happens in cultures all the time. I mean, you can see
Yeah.
historically that there's a pendulum swing that happens. And so I feel very happy to be part of this swing for the women out there that are looking for this kind of content. And that's what I try to
Okay.
do with my
Maybe I'm biased
Instagram.
because I live in LA, and I think if I brought this book up, they might think it's like a gag gift or something like that,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
Um, let's take this. Let's see the contents. There's 50 chapters, right? There's 50 things every lady should know. Why don't you pick a number and I'll read a part of it, and then we'll see if you still have the same opinion.
Okay, 31.
Okay, so 31 is on losing graciously. And let's see the tips they have on this.
I love this. This is fun.
So this book is structured like you do and you don't. So they'll just say, all right, so this one is: you do congratulate the winner. You don't burst into tears, run off in a huff, throw a hissy fit, or stomp your foot and cry unfair. And then after that, it'll give you like a why.
Mm,
So this book is kind of interesting to me because it covers like every little random thing, like, you know, what to do at a dinner if the food isn't good, and all this kind of little
hmm.
stuff. Who's teaching young ladies this stuff nowadays? Like,
Well,
I mean, I don't know what your upbringing was like, but is this something that was like kind of formally taught, or you just observed? Like,
who, me personally? Do you mean in my
well,
life? Are
you
you asking
personally,
me?
but also, yeah, but also, what do you think is happening now? Like,
Well, there's, like I said, this resurgence of this type of content coming out, and I would call it Titus 2 style teaching. So older women like myself and older, we are creating content that is helping to restore some of these principles and guidelines around
mm-hmm,
behavior and interaction between men and women, for example.
right.
And so I actually went to a finishing school. It wasn't called a finishing school when I went to it, but the idea is you learn. My parents were I mean, they taught me manners, but a finishing school is even more refinement and being very, how you walk and how you speak to someone, making eye contact. And so in the Bible, a Titus 2 woman is someone who would be teaching the younger women not
Mm-hmm.
only these kinds of skills, but also how to live in and making her whole life for the glory of God. So that includes her marriage as well and how she raises her children. So I
Right.
think that women that are looking for this kind of content, there are quite a few YouTube channels and Instagram content creators who
Yeah.
are talking about biblical femininity, biblical womanhood. And so I think this book that you're reading, it sounds like it's maybe more for just secular people,
Right.
just for the
Right.
general public.
Right.
And then the books that I really look for are taking it a step further, how to live a godly life, becoming more like Christ, and it's just amazing and beautiful how that translates
Mhm.
into the rest of one's experience of life, and how men respond to a woman who practices these kinds of skills of for some women it feels very formal because it's so new, and it seems
Mhm.
like, oh, like I have to be so prim and proper. Well, it's really not about that. It's about respect and treating people with respect. And that number 31 that you read, the word that came up for me was dignity. So how to be graceful and dignified when you lose a game, and
Yeah.
then how you would act if you were not having that same level of dignity.
Yeah. So for women who have like a negative visceral reaction to a book like this,
Mhm.
or for all of us who maybe even snicker at church when um, that passage from First Peter chapter 3 is read, where uh, he praises um, Sarah for calling Abraham Lord. Uh, Why do you think that is? Why do you think that some of us have those negative visceral reactions
Well,
to
there are a
either?
few reasons. There are a couple of reasons. I'll just name the two biggest ones. So this word misogyny, right? It's used so often by progressive liberal women who think that men and women are the same, right? This is what we've been told. I was raised this way, that men and women are the same. They should be treated the same. So when you start talking about things like how to be a submissive Christian woman, oh my gosh, that's like, oh, that's so oppressive. That's so terrible. Like, what are you, a doormat? You're just going to let men walk all over you? And it's actually the opposite is the case in my experience, and in the experience of the women that I work with, and the women at my church. I mean, we don't see submission as a terrible thing, that somehow we're less than a man. Actually, men are called to protect us and provide for us. So I don't really see how that equates to being a doormat. I mean,
Mhm.
in biblical submission, and then what I do with my clients with biblical polarity work is just learning how to respect the differences between men and women, how to honor each other, and how to allow these differences between men and women to actually create magnetism and intense um, connection and intimacy and chemistry within the marriage that I've noticed a lot of secular marriages are lacking. The ones that everything's 50-50. Um, I'm the woman, and I also make decisions in the household, and because I'm smarter. A lot of women believe that they're more intelligent than their men, and then you
Right.
read something like what you were just reading, and then all of a sudden now people like me are saying that women are stupid or something. I saw a post just a couple of days ago, and it was on EV magazine, which is a nice alternative for conservative women who also are into fashion and
Mhm.
homemaking and femininity. And the post said, the woman is the heart of the home, the wife is the heart of the home, the husband is the head of the home. And surprisingly, there are a lot of feminist women that commented. I didn't know they followed this magazine, it's an online magazine, but they were just, they lost their minds. What? That's so misogynistic. Oh, you're saying that women aren't intelligent too? And it's like, no, that's not what that post was about. The post wasn't making women out to be less than a man.
Yeah.
It's just that we were created with different skills, different innate, instinctual ways of being. And I love it. And I'm all about celebrating the differences between men and women. And for the women that don't agree and they want 50-50 in their relationship and they love being a boss babe and they don't care about being protected or provided for, that's fine. Go and do that if that works for you. And then the women that I work with and who follow my content are more so the ones that really love feeling feminine, being in their femininity, cultivating their femininity, and then watching
Hmm.
how men respond to that, and how an instinctual masculine man is going to be 1,000 times more attracted to and comfortable with a woman who is deeply seated in her natural restored femininity than he is
Hmm.
going to be on a date with a woman that's just going to talk about how much money she makes, how she wants to, conquer the world, and how smart she is, and all of her opinions. And
Hmm.
a masculine man isn't looking for a woman like that. And that's, I'm sorry, that's just the way it is.
Right.
That's just the way we were created.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't I didn't decide this. God did.
Do you think that's why there's so much frustration in kind of the dating world now, for women and men? Like,
Yeah.
just at the core of it, that uh, both sides, to some extent, are
Yeah.
not fulfilling the role that kind of God ordained
Oh
for
yeah.
them.
Yeah,
So,
because our culture has been conditioning us through movies, cartoons, music, all of the popular media that we're confronted with is not supporting the restoration of God's design. It's celebrating the inversion of that. So
mhm.
I'm not sure how old you are. You seem like you're a lot younger than I am. But even when I was growing up, there was tons of messages coming out to us saying, that women um, don't worry about having babies and being a wife. You want to go to a good school so you can have a good career and make tons of money. Well, that's an
Mhm.
inversion of what we were designed for. Women were designed to be wives, to help their husbands, to have babies, to keep humanity moving forward, right? Generation after generation. And now we see such a drop in the number of people getting married and having children, and it's all being perpetuated by what we see in movies and TV and music.
Yeah. I want to play a clip for you, and you let me know what you think, whether this is like part of the resurgence you're talking about, or is this just Instagram clickbait kind of stuff
Okay.
that's extreme. All right. Okay, so this is like a Instagram clip that kind of went viral. Can you see it? Can you see there?
I can. It's
All right.
really small, but I'll do my best.
All right, I'm gonna hit play.
Oh my gosh. I don't hear any audio, but I can see. I see a bride on her
Oh,
knees in
you
front
don't
of.
hear the audio?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'll just kind of tell you what's going on
Okay,
here.
please.
Um, there's this bride at their wedding. She gets on her knees and she says, basically, "I'll forever submit to you, and you're the leader of the household." And
Oh,
Proverbs
okay.
31 woman,
I like
yada
that.
yada, and everyone's cheering and going wild. Uh,
Okay.
so you look at a video like that, nothing wrong there. That's totally
Oh,
fine.
well, I mean, I would never do that.
R-
I don't
Right.
think that needs to be part of the wedding ceremony, but yeah, I do think that a woman stating to her husband that she's
Hmm.
making a commitment to be a Proverbs 31 woman as well as she can, I
Mhm.
think that's fine. I just think the kneeling is a little bit much. I at
Over the
home,
top. Yeah.
yeah, when I'm alone with my husband, I love sitting and rubbing his feet, sitting at his feet and giving him a foot rub. So I
Mhm.
think privately that's totally fine.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just not something I would do during a wedding ceremony. What are you thinking? I'd love to know your thoughts on it.
No, I thought it was really beautiful.
Okay.
I don't think she had to kneel and all of that, but I thought it was a great, like, just a great public display of, like,
Mm,
this is what this marriage is gonna be about, and this is
okay.
how I intend, in our church, in the Coptic Orthodox Church, there is no exchange of vows, there's no talking at
Yeah.
all between
Same with in the
between
Orthodox weddings, we don't exchange
Right,
vows
right,
either. Yeah.
right. So I mean, it's really just silence. But I don't know. I thought it was cute. A little over the top. You
I
know.
like it. I think that probably there were a lot of very angry comments from secular people not really understanding what was going on, and
Yeah.
that's the trouble with trying to explain this kind of thing to
Right.
non-Christian people. And again, like I had said earlier, it's his commandment to risk his life for hers, like
Mm-hmm.
that groom, maybe the reel could have shown something where he uh, um, commits to uh, rescuing her, or like, laying down his
Right.
life to protect hers and the lives of their future children, because that's something that I don't think is recognized
Right.
enough.
We've been hitting on some of the tenets of feminism, and I want to get into those. But before I do you think by default, like, a young woman growing up today is going to be more feminist leaning, and then they have to go through a process of maybe awakening, undoing that? Or
Yeah,
do you think
for
everyone,
sure.
or you think, yeah, I agree. I just think it's kind of rare for a young woman to grow up more traditional and with
Well,
kind of
yeah,
the
I would.
biblical perspective of male female
Yeah,
dynamic.
she'd have
Um,
to be raised in the church. I mean, I would think,
Well, even those
hopefully.
raised in the church, and then we'll get into the reasons why I think that is, but because so all right, so feminism, it's kind of a loaded term. There's a lot of deep ambiguity there. There's a lot of conflation that
Mhm,
happens.
mhm,
So the main tenets, I think, of feminism, and you can correct me, but I think kind of the main ones are very pro-abortion, abortion on demand,
mhm.
whenever you want it, for
Yeah.
any reason. That's your right. Another one that you kind of hit on was uh, the kind of the anti-marriage sentiment, because marriage is like a tribute to the patriarchy, or it's a tool to the patriarchy, and it's just a form of slavery, essentially, uh,
Yeah.
not to mince words. um, and then their goal of, like, redefining sex is only something for pleasure. And by
Mm,
the way, like, a
mhm,
lot of these concepts I got from Father Josiah Trenum.
mhm.
I know you shared some of his content,
Yeah.
and he has some great series on the good husband, the good wife,
Yeah, it's very
um,
good. Yeah.
that are really good.
Mhm,
So those kind of things that I just outlined, um, I think any, like, woman that you alluded to that grew up in the church, they're gonna agree those are anti-Christian values, right?
mhm. Oh,
Those
yeah.
those are the obvious ones, but then there are the, like, the subtenets where they're feminist principles, but I think us as Christians, sometimes we kind of get confused, and, like, so I want to go over some of those with you, and then maybe you could shed light on them.
Sure.
Like, um, I think one subtenet of feminism is that meaning is primarily derived from your career.
Mhm. Yeah, I I agree. I mean, like I said earlier, it's like in the magazines that I read as a teenager, And even I think I was reading those like Cosmopolitan and things like that, even at
Mm-hmm.
age like 11 and 12. It's all about your career and your briefcase and your heels, and there's nothing in there about homemaking or raising children, or there are the family magazines, but as far as just the ones that were
Mm-hmm.
focused on young women, it was
Yeah.
all about being a career woman. And that, yeah,
Wasn't home
that's
ec like something that was taught in high school, and I don't know if it was taught in middle school. Like it wasn't taught when I was in high school,
yeah,
but
it
yeah,
was,
I
I
think I
think
think
it
it was
had
even a
just,
major like in college, to be
yeah,
honest.
yeah, when
Um,
I was in high school we had a cooking class, but nothing else, nothing besides that. Yeah.
okay. And so like I think there's maybe a lot of shame. Like, well, this all of these kind of relate. Like another subtenet is like it's a waste of a woman's talents,
Hmm.
education, and resources for her not to have a career. Um, and that's a hard stigma, I think, for young women to get over. Right? It's just so ingrained in everything.
Well, the
So.
other thing they say is that you can always have your career. You can have your career first, have your fun, date a bunch of guys. And then when you're older, you can get married and start having kids, because don't you see the women are having children in their 40s now? So just go and do your career for as long as you want, and then
Hmm.
that other stuff will come later if you want it. And so
Right.
now, unfortunately, there's so many women in their mid 30s mostly and early 40s who are single and really want to have a family and children. I mean, I'm not saying it's a huge number of women, but there are women
Hmm.
who want that. But now they're finding, unfortunately, men, and I know women hate hearing this, but men biologically seek younger women, and there's a evolutionary purpose for that, because younger women are able to have many more children. They're physically just able to be fertile and
Hmm.
have children. It's just the way it is. And so I do know quite a few gorgeous women, smart, funny, sweet, kind, Christian, even women
Mm.
who are in their late 30s or mid 30s, and they waited too long, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I don't like to say, I mean, I'm not saying that if you're a woman in your 30s and you're listening right now, too bad for you, you're not going to get married. I do not believe that at all. In
Right. Right.
fact, it's part of what I do with my mentorship, is to support women who are in their 30s. But let me tell you something. If I'm a man and I'm looking for a wife, I'd much rather have a submissive, feminine, respectful woman in her 30s or even her 40s who knows how to communicate respectfully than a young, hot 20 something who's super entitled and doesn't know how to be respectful, doesn't know how to ask for what she needs in a way that doesn't include blame, shame, or criticism. I mean, there's so many
Yeah.
ways to attract a man that have nothing to do with your age. A
Right.
good man, a devotional man. And sorry,
That's
I
so
kind of
that's
got off
no
course here,
no that
but
that's so true, and I think a lot of men don't even know uh, they want that until they start experiencing that. Like
mm,
they may go after the younger, more attractive, whatever uh, woman, and then because they've also been conditioned and
yeah.
feminized, they don't even realize they don't understand why it's not working
Hmm.
until they're with a more feminine woman.
Hmm.
And kind of on that point, the putting off the life stuff, it's because this whole notion of children is like bondage, like they're holding you down.
Yeah.
This family stuff, it's slowing you down. I mean, you can get to it later. It's kind of in this is what I think is kind of the gray area. Like once you start looking into it more as a Christian, you realize, oh, these are actually like unbiblical like
Yeah.
concepts.
Right.
But then the softest tenets of like feminism, no Christian would disagree with, because we're the ones who taught these things, like equality, um,
Mm-hmm.
women's right to vote, and things like these are like obvious things that um, I think are used by feminists. The conflating part, like this is what feminism is, but you got to
Yeah.
take everything with it.
Right.
But no, we can distinguish and take like what's good and dump the rest, right? Okay, so you went through this awakening yourself. I want to talk about that briefly, how that happened. You know, I told you earlier, I think like you have a radiance about you, and I think
Oh,
it's
thank
partly
you.
because of this. Um, so what were you like before? How did this transition happen? Could you kind of share a little bit about that?
First, I want to give all the glory to our Lord Jesus Christ, because he rescued me, and every day I'm so grateful for his goodness, his mercy. I was raised by secular parents, and by age 16, 15, 16, I was already calling myself a witch and doing little rituals. And I just thought it was so cool to have my pentagram laid out with my crystals and my candles. And I never did any black magic or anything like that. But as
Hmm.
you know, as a Christian, even good white magic, it's still magic, and it's still worshiping the creation rather than our creator. And I got into yoga, meditation. I was always in search of this heightened state of consciousness, right? Like I wanted
Hmm.
to know the answers of the universe. So I took psychedelics, and I thought that going to India and studying Hinduism and Zen Buddhism and all these ancient religions or spiritual practices would lead me to ultimate truth, right? And so I knew, I mean, I've always been about love, beauty, and truth. However, I didn't know how to distinguish between objective truth and like relativistic truth, your truth, my truth. We all have our
Mm.
own truth, and we all need to just like let each other live our own lives, make our own choices. Nobody can tell us what to do. And if you're a Christian, then you just following what some men told you are the rules, and how sad for you. Like I really actually felt sorry for Christian people, and it's so embarrassing. Like I've repented so much for so much of these things that I'm telling you right now, and
Yeah.
and I just trust the timing of the Lord. And there were days early in my Christian journey where I just was so confused. Why did it take me so long to pick up a Bible and discover the goodness, especially in the Orthodox Church, which is I was baptized a year ago. All the puzzle pieces of everything that I wanted to know about reality, they're all in the Bible. They're all in the Orthodox Church. And I was looking for them in all these other exotic places because they just seemed so, like just that like mystical witchiness was very, very
Hmm.
attractive to me. And so when I met my husband, of course, I was in this mindset of mysticism and witchiness and spirituality. And then I always say that Christianity actually saved my marriage, because what it did was sorry for the noise. I hope you don't hear all the noise around me right now where I am.
No, it's okay.
Okay. Um, what happened was I learned about humility, which is not something that you learn in the New Age. Um, oh, I do see. Oh, somebody's trying to call me. That's why. Sorry. Oh, all these interruptions. Sorry. See, the enemy doesn't want me talking about this stuff. Um, so I found out about repentance and humility. I'm just telling everyone out there who's listening, if you're not a Christian, these are the things that are missing from your life, because they totally transformed my life and my marriage. My husband has always been traditional minded in terms of how respect should be given to the husband and in these ways and that ways. And I was rebelling for a lot of our marriage against a lot of these principles that he held as this is what you do when you're married. You're not single
Mhm.
anymore. So now you have to start thinking about somebody else for once in your life. And I never
Right.
really got that until I became a Christian. And all of a sudden, we're not arguing anymore. He feels respected. I feel totally cherished, adored. Our communication is much better. Our intimacy is increased because we have that understanding and that peace between us. And we don't argue anymore. We don't have fights.
Mhm.
We're just like constantly grateful for each other. I'm grateful to the Lord for bringing him into my life. And this is what has drawn me into the work that I do, because I just want all married couples to experience this level of magnetism and joy and connection, and it's what we were created for. So I forgot what the
Wow.
original question was.
No, wow, that's powerful. So, how did this transition happen? Was it Christianity first and then kind of the unraveling of the rebellion and kind of the feminist leaning principles, or did that start a little bit before that? Or
It
was
was,
Christianity kind of the the gate towards all of this kind of
yeah,
change?
it really
That's
was.
beautiful. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, just
S-
all. I mean, we'd had periods of our relationship where we weren't arguing or fighting, because I don't want it to sound like our whole marriage before I became a Christian was bad. It was fine, but there were periods where we just kind of tolerated each other. We weren't really like
mhm.
crazy about each other like we are now. Again, some of that honeymoon period that they talk about, once that kind of waned away and it was just all about competing for
Mhm.
power. And um, but it was after we had been separated, we were almost going to get divorced. And we fortunately we did not get divorced. We decided let's just like try this again because we really love each other. We're gonna try to make it work. But we had no support. I had no we had a therapist who did not help us at all. In fact, she encouraged me to divorce him for stupid reasons, just merely because I wasn't happy. Like that was the reason.
I read a stat the other like week where it was like 75% of people who are divorced are not any
No
happier.
happy, right?
Yeah.
They're no happier. Yeah,
But that's commonly like the advice given. Well, you're not happy, you just got a divorce.
right.
Maybe you'll be
And
happier.
and the grass will be greener, right? You
Uh-huh.
can always find another guy out there.
Mhm.
So fortunately,
How long had you been together up until the point where it was kind of you were
uh,
thinking about parting?
14, 14 years, 13, 14 years.
And during
And
that time, you were in this kind of new age
I was so at
mindset
this,
still?
yeah, at this point, I believed that, I don't know, do you know what ayahuasca is? Ayahuasca ceremonies. There are these
No.
for
Is that
for
the supplement or something? Or am I thinking about
well,
something else? No.
yeah, they think of it as a supplement. They call it medicine. They
Okay.
call it a medicine journey. And this was, I believe, this medicine was the answer for spiritual. Like this is gonna like enlighten and heal the world. And so you go, I won't go into all the details, it would take me way too long, but you sit with about 10 or 12 people, sometimes many more, and you drink this. It's like an inversion of the Eucharist, if you can think of
Mm,
it that way, where you actually go into another realm where you hear messages that are supposed to guide you in your process of healing and transforming your life, right? So one of those voices told me to leave my husband. Like it's
wow.
demonic.
Wow.
It's supposed to, it pretends to give you special powers. It's like the tree in the Garden of Eden, right?
Yeah.
the serpent, and the serpent is actually the primary visual symbol of this journey that you go on.
Sounds
Almost
very
everybody.
Gnostic.
Yes, it is. It is. It
Hmm.
really is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, I at this time was doing these kinds of practices and ceremonies and things. And so, yeah, when it told me, oh, yeah, you'll be much happier if you leave your husband, I was like, okay. And this is a common story. I've heard this from online. If you do
Mm.
research about ayahuasca ceremonies, it does happen that because my belief around this is that it's the enemy trying to split up partnerships of men and women to destroy that love and that connection. I mean, imagine if I would have gone through with the divorce, I wouldn't be with my husband now, and what a tragedy that would be.
Yeah.
We're so in love with each other. We're like every day we're just like, I love you so much, and we support each other and respect each other and cherish
That's
each other.
awesome. And the church does teach that every home is in itself a mini church. So
Yeah,
that does
yeah,
make sense that Satan would want to destroy that
exactly.
the institution, but also just for each individual and their partner. Okay, so a little bit more because I am kind of fascinated with the new age stuff. Even like I myself get like captivated by it a little bit
Oh
because
yeah,
it's
it's
very
seductive.
interesting. But
Yeah.
is it in terms of gender, is it more females that were into this or the
Hmm.
community you're in, or is it a
Yeah.
mix or yeah?
It's mostly females, and the men that are involved usually are very effeminate, or not effeminate,
Mm-hmm.
just emasculated, I would say. They're
Right.
not strong leaders. They're very wishy-washy. Oh, let's go with the flow. I'm in the moment. And, this whole concept of like being claimed by a man, I love it. And it's for married people. It's for courtship. This idea of like a man claims a woman. I'm 100% like, oh, it's so sexy to me because it's like so masculine to claim a woman, right? And make her your own and cherish her and adore her. Well, if you're a new age guy and you claim a woman, what does that mean? Okay, for the next week and a half, and then you're going to claim the next woman.
Mm,
So there are some polarity and relationship coaches out there that are creating content for the masses. And so these are not Christians. These are not people who believe that marriage is what you like,
mm,
that's where you have that sexual connection with a woman is when she's your wife, not just
mm-hmm.
this week, oh, I'm going to Indonesia and I'm going to pick up these women here, and then I'm going to go to Sedona. And so I don't mean to generalize or judge or anything, but this is my experience. This is what,
Yeah.
when I was in that community, those were the kinds of men that you would find.
And it's kind of creeped into the mainstream. I don't know. Have you heard of Joe Dispenza?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
he is he one of these kind of figures, or is he a little different, or?
Well, it's secular spirituality. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like it glorifies the self. It doesn't glorify our Lord. And
Mm-hmm.
so really how much healing are you going to get out of that? Because you're never going to lay yourself down at the feet of your creator in full repentance and gratitude for his graciousness and his love for us.
Mm-hmm.
In the new age, it's just a lot about like your potential, your path, all about you're your own God. So
Mm-hmm.
um it it didn't get me anywhere, I'll tell you that.
All right. Okay, so the Lord saved you. Um, you started down the Christian path. Concepts like humility became a part of your life, and your marriage became a lot better as a result. How did that lead to a passion to help other women achieve the same thing? Like what steps did you've always been kind of like a an entrepreneur, right?
Hmm.
From my
Yeah,
understanding, you've always essentially, I think you had maybe one or two jobs where you worked for someone else, but you've always worked for yourself, right?
that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is this your career now? Is this what you
Hmm.
do?
I Yes, I am a mentor for
Mhm.
women. Eventually, I want to work with couples because I want to help guide couples back into the restoration that we've been talking about, where the man is leading, the woman is submitting to his leadership, which in the most general term of what I mean is she's respecting him as the leader of the household. So they don't need to compete with, oh, I want to do it my way. No, let's do it my way. When a woman submits to her husband's leadership, you don't even realize it just takes off such a huge weight. Now she gets to just be a woman and experience the beauty of being a woman, just being cherished and adored, and she doesn't need to be the one leading and taking charge of everything. And then the man feels so respected, and then it brings them more together. So I
Okay,
want to
I
work
have I
with
have a lot
couples.
of questions about that because,
Okay.
but first, how did that itch start? Were you already coaching in a different capacity, and then now
Yeah.
you're like, let me start mentoring in this
Yeah.
capacity? Okay.
Yeah. So I was already I was in the secular coaching industry before I became a Christian. So and I was on Facebook. So what I did was I just shut all of that down because it was very new agey based. Sorry, I can see there's a delay in the video. So I shut that whole business down and started my new content on Instagram from a Christian perspective. So I already had years of experience in the self-development secular coaching world, but now I was studying Orthodoxy and preparing to become a baptized Orthodox Christian. Um, and all the pieces just started to fit together, and
Mhm.
so I hope that answers your question. It was kind of like I took, because there of course there are very helpful, wonderful things that I learned from the secular coaching world, but making the Lord your primary focus of your life, not yourself,
Mhm.
making your life out to glorify him in everything you do. I mean, that's like night and day difference, but there are some things from the secular coaching world that we can still use today because they're not new age. They're just helpful principles,
Okay.
you know.
But had you already developed kind of all of the concepts that you talk about now, like polarity, radiance, or did that, like, how did you start? What were you posting? And then how did it develop into, okay, like,
Yeah,
I
I
don't imagine you had like a program already day one, or maybe you did. I don't know.
no, and I still don't even really, I'm not a coach, really. I'm a
Hmm.
mentor. So
Okay.
I don't even sell a program. I might at some point because I've created programs. I've written them out. I've done the full on outline and everything. But what I found is that I prefer to work privately, and the way I do it is a 30-minute call once a week or a 60-minute call once a week for 3 months or 6 months. And it's just such a private container where I'm working very closely with one woman on that call rather than coaching, which is like a course where there's
Hmm.
information, but there might not really be that huge transformation or those breakthroughs like you get when you're just working privately. So that's really what I've been focusing on is my private mentorship.
Got it. Okay. So, um, let's talk about some of the concepts that you help women with, and
Mm,
one of them is radiance. What does that mean?
yes.
Yeah.
So a radiant woman, I think that everybody probably can come up with their own definition of what is a radiant woman, but I can only speak for myself. A radiant woman is a woman who, first of all, has full trust and faith in God and walks with him as as his daughter in full faith and trust, and is always seeking his will, not her own, and prayerfully requesting his support and presence throughout her life through the highs and the lows. So we're not just grateful to God when something wonderful happens and we're having a great day and we feel super happy and joyful. A radiant woman knows that there are going to be times in her life where she's going to be faced with challenges, and her courage is sourced from her connection to her creator and her
Mm.
gratitude for him, and that even the challenges and the rough times, there's something in there for her, that a terrible thing isn't happening to her, it's happening for her, and this creates this inner confidence and radiance that you cannot buy, you can't fake it. When you see a woman who lives her life like this, you know it, you just feel it, you feel really good around her. She gives you warm eye contact, her body language is soft and open, and you just want to talk to her and like find out more about her, and she wants to find out about you. There's just this perfect
Yeah.
energy between you of like compassion and grace and goodness and warmth. And yes, she has her low days too, but she's not bitter, she doesn't use her words to hurt people or to be spiteful or to be greedy or get what she wants. She's always thinking about like how can I obey God, and how can my husband, my children, my family, my loved ones, how can I show Christ's love to them through me and my actions and my words. And
Hmm.
it's not even something that she's like thinking about, like, oh, how am I going to do this? It's just this natural grace and warmth that comes from her. And to me, I mean, that's what life's about. I love people, I love talking to people, I love being around people, and I love supporting people, listening. Listening is something that a radiant woman is very good at. When somebody has a problem, she doesn't need to go in and fix things. She's not trying, she's not striving, she's not trying to get outcomes. She's just being in the moment, trusting God, and sharing God's light with the world. So
Hmm.
that's in a nutshell. There's more, but I'll
Yeah.
just leave it. I'll leave you with that.
And it's interesting that as you were describing it, you referenced like physical characteristics and how a woman might look and warmth. And I think there's a lot of truth to that, that the inner kind of starts projecting on the outer, like where you could see it on someone's face.
Mhm.
So that's it. And so
Like,
what's like, go ahead. Yeah.
oh, I get so excited talking about this because even yesterday on one of my calls with one of my clients, I've seen photos of her. We do the calls just audio, so I'm not like looking at her while we're having our calls, but she sent me a photo of her one time. She's a physically gorgeous woman, but it's her love for Christ and her sweetness, and she's got this like joy for life. And um she was saying something like, people tell me I'm beautiful, but I don't know if I can believe it. And I said, well, you are physically beautiful, but believe in the inner beauty that you possess, because it's magnetic. I mean, you
Mm,
just like, she's just such a overflowing, radiant woman, that I said, what would happen if you got in a car accident and the car blew up and you were burnt, your face is completely disfigured, and you were in a wheelchair the rest of your life. So now you're not beautiful or something. She's like, oh, I know. So we have these types of conversations on my calls with my women, that the radiance is
mhm,
a Christ's light that we get to shine into the world.
right. And the world and magazines and movies and even music just all emphasize the exterior.
Yeah.
Um, but I do agree. I think like the inner beauty overshadows like any like it's almost like you whatever the exterior is, it doesn't matter if the
Mhm.
interior is beautiful. The person is
Yeah.
just so compelling. You want to be around them.
Yeah.
Um, Okay, another concept you talk about is polarity. Um, what does that mean, and how is that distinguish? How do you distinguish it from the secular polarity that
Mhm.
you were kind of alluding to earlier?
Yeah. So polarity, it's tools to use to create magnetism. I mean, I try to keep it really simple, because if we get too detailed about it. People think, oh, well, if I'm kind of a tomboy, does that mean I'm not polarized? No, it's not about that. It's about respecting the differences between men and women, which we talked about before. And for a woman, polarity skills would include ways to express a problem, a feeling, something that's going on to her man without blaming him, without using you always in the sentence, and instead turning it around and making it about like her emotional state right now. She's either sad, angry, if something is not going the way she wants. She can be responsible for herself and the feeling that she's having and express to her husband, let's say, that she's feeling sad. And permissively too, which a lot of feminists don't like this, but part of polarized communication includes asking first. Like, I'm not, if I see my husband, I'm not going to run right up to him and say, I'm so angry, I'm so sad. That would not be polarized communication, because that would be penetrating him with my emotions. Instead, I would ask him, is this a good time to share something with you? If not, when would be a good time? And then he'd say, yeah, now's a good time. Okay, may I share something about how I'm feeling? Yes, please do. I feel so sad. And then state the problem without making him wrong or bad or ashamed of something he did, but really taking responsibility. So I'm just giving you one example of how I utilize polarity in my mentorship, because I'm helping the women with skills to change their language, find feminine ways to communicate their issues, their problems, their feelings with men, because otherwise a man will tend to get defensive, feel hurt that she's blaming him for something. She's not taking responsibility for her feelings, and now he's got to defend himself and tell her why. And it just, usually what happens, it just turns into this big argument. So this is
It
a way
escalates.
yeah, it escalates. And a lot of times the one person will just completely shut down, and then there's no opportunity for connection in that kind of situation. So does that
one problem I could
answer
see
your question?
there is that the woman, you're telling a woman this is how you should communicate, and then now I expect my husband to communicate with me the same way.
Oh, interesting.
So do you
Oh,
do
you mean
like
now
asking
the
permission and
no, 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 no,
and
no, no. That would be so emasculating. That would be so
right,
emasculating.
right.
But
But
to
you
a feminist woman, this
have you heard of nonviolent communication?
yes, there are some there's some benefit with nonviolent communication, but
Yeah,
it's not polarized. Nonviolent communication doesn't distinguish between if the man is speaking or the woman is speaking. That's
right,
why there's a problem. It's the same thing with the 5 love languages. 5 love languages are not polarized.
right,
Every woman should have all 5 of those love languages. Maybe there are a couple that she has a little bit more than the other, but the men's love languages are respect and physical, intimate relations
right,
with his wife, and
right,
that's just the way it is. Men do not need to receive compliments. Men do not need to receive gifts. That's the
right.
giving is masculine, receiving is feminine, and this is so triggering to so many people. But I don't speak to
So
those people. I'm speaking to the ones that are ready to hear this and want to learn.
yeah. And is this part of something that you think is an objective truth? Or do you think,
Oh
hey,
yeah.
whatever works for you works for you?
Oh
Or do
no,
you think
because
ultimately it won't work for them if that's what they're insisting on?
no, okay, that's such a good question, Andrew. Thank you for bringing this up, because you'll hear couples say, well, I'm in a relationship where my wife makes all the decisions. She tells me what to wear.
Oh
She
boy.
she makes sure that my dentist appointment is scheduled and I get there on time, and she's always checking and making sure. And so that's an inverse in the polarity in that relationship is reversed. If that works, who am I to say change your life, change your polarity? Go for it, do it. But to answer your other question about objective truth, biologically, we have instincts that are not conditioned by society. These are built into us. We're created by God this way. So in
Uh-huh.
that sense, they are objective. The polarity that I teach is objective because of biological imperative functions and the way that we were created. So that's why I'm saying like what I talk about is not for everyone, because if someone
Mhm.
thinks that there are a million, thousand, bazillion different genders, they're not gonna like what I'm
Right,
talking
right.
about very much.
The well, what informs, I guess, just to cover the baseline, what does inform your philosophy and teachings? Are you referring uh, to biblical passages, to writings from the fathers? I know St. John
Mhm.
Chrysostom talks a lot about the family and marriage. Do you seek guidance from spiritual fathers, priests? Like what's
Mhm.
informed your own concepts that
Hmm.
you share with women?
That's a great question. It's all of it. It's everything. I found a couple of books written by Christians about marriage, and one of the author's name is Martha Peace, and she wrote The Excellent Wife. And I just absolutely love this book because everything she says is backed up by scripture. She'll say something about how men prefer to be treated, or something about women and their natural um, inclinations or whatever, and then she'll put a passage from scripture. So I love that because obviously I want to see how I want to see what the word of God has to say about these
Mm-hmm.
things. Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of books like this. So in fact, the polarized communication information that I've been interested in, that teacher says he's not a Christian, but I think he might be, because I think he's just trying to let his content reach a broader audience by not saying he's
Right.
a Christian or something. I don't know him, so I haven't asked this question, but nothing that I've read that he's said or written conflicts with
Mm-hmm.
biblical truths. And he's very anti-feminism, and he believes there are two genders, male and female. And so other than that, it's just been what I've practiced and embodied, and then what I've guided my clients to practice and embody, and then watching how it works amazingly for them. The results
Yeah.
are off the charts, so I know it works. I know it's true because
What's
it
an
works for them.
example that you can give of something that a woman coming to you just might have a major misconception about, of this polarization of something that maybe how they should act towards their husband, that they just had a misconception
Oh,
about?
okay. Well, the biggest one is, how do I get him to dot dot dot? This
Mm.
is this is like the number one thing. I have a friend that I'm going to be collaborating with. Her name's Issa Ryan, and her content, her Instagram is called the Homemakers Manifesto, and she's wonderful. We're becoming very good friends, and she gets this in her DMs all the time. But I want to submit to my husband, but how do I get him to it? Dot dot dot. You don't get a man to do something if you're a feminine, submissive woman. Getting an outcome is masculine, so you don't have that as your primary focus. How do I get him to be a better leader? You don't. You inspire his masculine instincts to protect and provide for you and lead the family by encouraging him, helping him, supporting him, asking permissively if there's something um, he needs. And you know,
Mhm.
you behave in a respectful way, and the only way you can do that is by cultivating your own feminine instincts. You don't change a man, you change yourself by restoring God's design for you, and you learn effective communication skills that will be effective in the way that he responds.
Mhm.
But you don't you don't tell a man, anytime you try to get an outcome with a masculine man, something in him just goes, yuck, this is not good, this is not right. And a man needs to be able to say, you're being disrespectful right now. Women don't want to hear that they're being disrespectful right now. But if you want to be a submissive Christian woman, you have to be able to hear that. You have to be able to trust that he's helping you become a better woman and a better wife, and and showing you how to be more respectful toward him. And so how do you get a man to change? You restore your feminine instincts. It inspires his masculine instincts, and he starts to want to devote himself to you. This doesn't work if the man is a narcissist and was always a narcissist. And this is a very overused term, narcissism and narcissist, but it's a real thing. It's a reality that some men and some women, probably equal in number, only care about themselves. So there's no way. So, these are not the people that I'm talking about, but I trust that the women who follow my content and who come to me for guidance chose a man who is not a narcissist, someone who is devoted to her and loves her. But like yesterday, I had a huge win with one of my clients. One thing that they struggle with in their marriage is that the husband always asks her what to do. I mean, he's constantly trying to get leadership from his wife, and that is inverted, and to her it feels awful. It feels like, ugh, because she's a feminine woman, she doesn't want to lead. She doesn't want to be asked how he should be a better leader. And so I helped her with her communication. And yesterday she shared with me, there's just been this humongous switch in their polarity, and it has brought them closer together, and they just understand each other better. Now he feels more masculine, she feels more feminine. I mean, I love this stuff. I love it. It really works if you're willing to disengage from the conditioning, decondition yourself, and restore your natural instinctual way of being. It's really fun.
Yeah. How are you, like, on these first calls, how are you diagnosing what the issue is? Like, do you go through, because that I didn't expect you to bring up that issue. I thought it would be more women who are not feminine, and you're kind of bringing that out. But it sounds like she was feminine, or her
Yeah,
husband wasn't as
yeah,
masculine, but you were coaching her on how to, mentoring her on how to bring it up. So I'm sure you get a
yeah,
spectrum of clients with
yes,
different levels, different areas.
exactly. Mhm.
How do you kind of like start diagnosing what the issue is, and so you
I
can focus on it?
listen. I listen to them. I ask a lot of questions. I It's different. It's different for every couple. And I would say right now, about half of my clients are single. So, for example, I have a radiant, vivacious, attractive, smart, wonderful single client. And she's so in her head, she knows this about herself. She overthinks and overanalyzes. So, in terms of her femininity, it's not about, there's certain characteristics or principles or things about a feminine woman that she has practically all of them down. And that's why I call myself a
Mm,
mentor, because I work with women that they've already got this femininity thing. I'm not
mm.
taking someone who is a raging feminist boss babe who's been controlling her husband for 20 years, and she just like does. I mean, I could help her, but that isn't the type of woman that comes to me. The type of woman that I help is just someone who just wants to not lead the man that she's dating, and she wants
Mm,
her language and the way she speaks to him to be soft and warm and inviting and not penetrative. And so I have messaging. I offer 24/7 messaging as an upgrade to my clients if they want to send me a voice memo or a text. So all through the week, she'll say, I want to say this, but how can I say this in a more feminine way? And then we work with different word choices that are not penetrating, that are not going to make him become defensive, that are going to show that she really cares about him. And so it's super fun. I forgot what your question was though.
That's okay. Are majority of your clients also, um, like, do they have full-time careers and like what do they look like? Like, just
Yeah,
what's the
so
demographics?
the single women have
Mhm.
careers because they're supporting themselves right now. They don't have a man doing that for them. And then the married women, some of them work, some of them don't. Some of them work part-time.
How do you think that affects the polarity? Having a
It,
full-time career in
it,
like the outside world, does it make it harder?
yeah,
Does it
it
make a
does.
difference or
It does because a lot of women don't know how to switch from go, 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 do, achieve, get
Mhm.
outcomes. These are all masculine ways of being in the world. They don't know how to come home and switch over to warm in her body, receiving, just in the moment, radiant. And so that's one of the things that I can
Right.
help women do
Yeah,
is to, yeah,
no, because I agree because these corporate jobs, they're so like they're so cutthroat and just the
yeah,
concept of humility and all this they don't exist in the corporate world. Um, so I can imagine it's really hard to just try because well, do you ever advise them that they should be that way in the workplace? Like just carry it all like through all aspects of your life?
oh yeah, you can be
Yeah.
feminine in the workplace. Yep,
Mm.
you definitely can.
I think
But
women would be afraid that they wouldn't be able to excel or move up the food chain, so to
yeah,
speak.
it depends on the career and the position. Because if you're
Mhm,
managing a team of 20 people, it's really hard to do that in a feminine way. But there are
mm,
things you can do. There are things you can do to feminize yourself a little bit in the workplace. But hopefully, you know, if a woman has a job where it's more like a service industry job or something like that, then it's a lot easier
mm,
to be warm and gracious and use your eye contact and feel. So much of it is just about getting out of your head, stop overthinking things and planning and plotting and achieving and just be like just like drop into the body and take a deep breath and smile and be grateful. I mean, that just those three simple steps are things that a lot of women forget to do while they're at work. And so making it a practice and making it a habit really helps them to make that shift to where they feel more feminine and they radiate.
mhm. So you use that phrase, "feel more feminine," and I've heard you discuss that distinction of feeling more feminine as opposed to being or becoming more feminine. What do you mean by that?
So I actually distinguish more um, between doing things to become it's it's a lot of like tricky language here, but doing things to be feminine, that's masculine. But being feminine is actually feeling feminine is actually part of being feminine. But doing things to feel feminine, like taking a bath, putting on a dress, putting on like there's all these accounts that are like buy yourself some nice smelling lotion and take a bubble bath and put on a dress that feels good, like a silk dress. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
saying that's bad. I am saying go for it, do that if you want to, but that doesn't make you become, it doesn't cultivate femininity the way that these other things that we've been talking about do. Choosing language that is not penetrating, that's like the number one thing I would, anybody watching right now who wants to start practicing how to polarize themselves, is to really watch the words that you use, because we don't realize it how often we judge, criticize, put our opinion onto someone that they should be like us. That a feminine radiant woman doesn't do that. She She asks questions. She talks about like things that bring her joy, that bring her closer to God, like these kinds of things, not like shoulds and things that the person she's talking to is going to have to be like, oh, I feel judged right now. That's not feminine at all. So
Mm-hmm.
cultivating femininity is like the Proverbs 31 woman that we were talking about before, cultivating those principles and being dignified, being patient, forgiving, compassionate, warm, and nurturing, and all these things. It just like even just the words when I say them, I just feel
Yeah.
like, ooh, I love it. I
Yeah.
just love being a woman. I love helping other women cultivate these things, and it's just my joy.
And do you see like do you see in these relationships and even for the single women that they come back to you and tell you, wow, like my husband or just men in general are just more attracted to
Mhm.
me?
Mhm.
Because I can just that even as you're describing it, I
100%.
mean, I can already see like, oh yeah, that sounds way more attractive than the
100%.
opposite of that.
Have you
uh,
ever been in a restaurant and the table next to you is a couple and you can kind of tell they're newly dating and the woman is talking the whole time. Talking. You almost think is he even there? You have to like check is he still there? Because I haven't heard his voice in the last 10 minutes.
uh-huh.
And she just cannot stop talking. That is so masculine.
Uh,
And she doesn't realize it. That's the thing. She doesn't realize it. And she doesn't know why the guy didn't call her back for another date. Well, it's because it was all about you, honey. You were just
mm,
glorifying yourself and not asking him and asking questions to a man. You have to be a little bit cautious as well. You don't want to give him you don't want to like make him feel like, oh, you're giving me the what is it called, the first degree or something.
okay, yeah, one of those
Like,
interview
yeah,
dates. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So being curious about a man and his opinions and his
Mm.
principles and his vision is different than, okay, so um, 2 years from now, where do you see yourself? It's like that's
Yeah.
very penetrating and it puts the guy on edge, like, oh.
You
But
brought
just
up
being,
yeah, no,
go ahead.
sorry. No, you brought up, the dining setting, so I have to ask, you mentioned that you love it when your husband orders your food.
I love it.
Uh, why do you
I
why do
love
you
it.
why do you love that?
Because A, I trust him. So if I didn't trust his choices, I probably wouldn't enjoy it so much. B, we've been together 20 years now, and even in the beginning, I would notice if he would always let me order first. I would order, and then he'd order something, and all of a sudden, I was like, "Oh, that sounds better than what I ordered. Can you change my order to what he?" So I'm fortunate that I have that. So let's say another couple, they have completely different tastes and the woman does not like what he orders, then this probably wouldn't work out as well. But I just love when a man chooses the date location, tells her what time, and a lot of women don't like this, but I think the man should be direct and choose the time. And if
What
if you're
about tell her what to wear? Is that too far?
if they're married, it's totally sexy and totally fine. If they're not
Mhm.
married, if they've just dated for 5 or 6 dates, I think it's fine if it's okay with her. I mean, all of this is like, is it
Right.
okay with her? But I think it's awesome when he's known her for a long time. Maybe they went on a date that was really fun and he just remembers how beautiful she looked in this particular blue dress and he tells her, I want you to wear that dress. I think it's sexy. I think it's awesome. But if it makes her uncomfortable, then she can share that. She could say it makes me uncomfortable for you to
Mhm.
tell me what to wear. And then maybe later in their marriage or something, she'll enjoy that more. But
Yeah.
men who are direct, women don't realize how much their instinctual feminine nature wants to be told. I know
Mhm.
it sounds so crazy, but we like to be told when we trust him, when we have
Mm.
full safe, because it's about safety. I feel
Yeah.
100% safe with my husband. That's why I don't have any boundaries. Boundaries are this huge, big concept. Ooh, you got to have boundaries. You got to have boundaries. Not if you're married to a devotional man who everything he says and wants is in your best interest. You don't have any reason for boundaries. There's nothing to protect yourself from because he's already protecting you.
Yeah.
So
Not to make you
that's how I feel
uncomfortable, but
about
as
that.
you were describing that, I don't know, you were touching your hair a lot, so I think you were thinking about your husband. But how do you know if your man is okay? Well, first,
You don't test.
no, no, no. Well, well, first I want to get to a distinction because we're kind of hitting on it, like pre-marriage and then during marriage.
Hmm. Hmm.
There's obviously going to be different levels of submission, right?
Absolutely.
Like at
Yes.
5 6 dates, what's how do you still signal polarity? How do
Great
you engage in
question.
polarity if
Yeah.
you're not yet married? Like you don't want
Great
to be
question.
you don't want to be overly polarized, and this man isn't the devotional
But
man yet, right?
uh,
Like
right.
he's not. Go ahead.
Right. Okay. Okay. I love this. This is so important, Andrew. This conversation we could actually do an entire hour
I'm
on. And
free.
I'm sitting in the sun and I'm starting to feel really hot. So I actually don't know how much longer I can.
Okay.
Maybe we could do a part two at some point because I absolutely love this question and it's super important because when you start talking to women about polarity and they say, this is unsafe, this is not okay, if the man is not a devotional man, and now I'm just submitting myself to him, it's going to put me in a dangerous position. And 100% is not what I'm saying. The safety is built with time and getting to know each other. However, you can still practice polarity, you can still practice polarized communication from the very first date, meaning that if he asks you or tells you to do something and you're a woman, you're a single woman, speaking to the audience, any single women listening right now, you can still practice polarized communication because you're going to express how uncomfortable you are. So, a radiant woman is a confident woman with self-worth, healthy self-worth, not entitlement, not it's all about me, I'm a princess. I'm talking about a woman who knows that she's not going to allow herself to be harmed or be told to sin in any way. And this goes for single and married women.
Hmm.
We're commanded that that a man who asks us to sin, we do not submit to him because we're submitted to God first, and we do what we're commanded by the Word of God or the Holy Bible. And if even your husband's a Christian, but he asks you to sin, you don't do it. So that goes along with things that make you really uncomfortable, like men who ask for inappropriate images after only knowing her for a little while and she feels really uncomfortable. Well, the answer isn't to ghost him or tell him he's a pervert or just like make him feel ashamed or bad about himself. A confident, radiant woman would express that his request made her feel uncomfortable. She's not going to do that. She's not going to send him naked pictures, and they could still date if he respects her. It is a boundary in that case. She's saying, don't expect
Hmm.
this from me because I'm not going to send it. And it could actually bring them closer together. It could actually uh, be, begin to create some kind of understanding. However, if he has an issue with lust and asking for those photos was because of that lust, then yeah,
Mm.
she's not going to want to date him. But if they've been dating for like, I don't know, 6 months or something, and they are courting and they are moving toward marriage, I think it's a little bit different. So there's all these nuances and things.
Got
But
it.
I just wanted to give an example of how you can still practice polarity with someone you're not married to, but the trust and the safety is going to take time. And even on the man's side, it's going to take time for him to feel safe, because each time you're together, you're going to notice if she's being respectful towards you. Is she being feminine in her communication with you? Is she blaming you, judging you, trying to tell you where to park, trying to tell you how to drive? Is she trying to tell you, oh, that shirt doesn't look that good on you. You should throw it out, and I'm going to go and buy you some new clothes. That's
Mm.
very penetrating, very masculine, and not feminine at all. She should be supporting him, encouraging him, building him up, not breaking him down. So these are little things that are going to make him feel safe to devote himself to her.
Do you think it's a responsibility of a masculine man when that's happening to start correcting those things,
Yes,
or is it just?
I do.
Mhm.
I do.
Yeah.
If he doesn't do it then, why wait until later? These kinds of conversations, I
And by the
believe,
way, the
should
word
happen
correction,
early.
I think, is gonna probably trigger people, just me saying correcting. Um,
It's
but
actually a masculine trait. And again, these women that they want a masculine man so bad, they're looking for this masculine man. But the minute he corrects her, she doesn't like that. And now he's a jerk. But what happened to your desire for a masculine man? A correction, when done kindly, gently. I mean, he doesn't have to do it in a mean way. Men can correct women in a loving way, but a lot of today's women don't even want that. They don't want to be told that they're sinning. They don't want to be told that they're not
Mhm.
glorifying God in a certain way, or that they're being disrespectful. But I mean, everybody listening, please know, I was that woman. I was that woman who did not want to be corrected. I did not want to be told no. I rebelled so hard against my husband. It's just incredible that I've thanked him a million times. Thank you for hanging in there with me, believing in me. But he believed in our love, and he believed that we were supposed to be together. So it's just been a
Mhm.
long process. So back
Yeah.
to your question, like what inspires me to do this work? I want to collapse time for other couples so that it didn't take them as many years as it took me and my husband to get to this place where
Mhm.
we are now.
And thank you for making that clarification earlier about it's really important that w- y- you're not telling women here to submit to sinful
Just anyone.
sinful
Yeah,
things, right?
no.
It has to
Yeah.
be in line with the teachings of the church.
Yeah.
Um, and on that, I think like we forget a lot that a lot of these concepts are coming from n- the creation of man and just the origin of man and woman, right? From Genesis,
Hmm.
um, and Eve being the helpmate
Yeah.
of Adam, right?
Hmm.
Um, a lot of that just gets lost in this whole conversation. Um, have you heard of that book, Even Exile?
I haven't read it. I might have heard
Okay.
of it. Have you read
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Was it
I
good?
haven't read it. I saw they put out like a basically like a documentary style 1 hour video on it. But it's like only through their streaming service, so you have to get that subscription. But it was really good. I think it did a great job of like um, getting into what that really means. Where the man is leading the wife, but the man has to be led by Christ, by God.
Right.
So the man isn't leading for his own like selfish
Right.
desires. It's
Exactly.
um, but what about the situation where there is no perfect man? And I realize you're baking in the sun, so I'll
I
wrap this
am.
up. I'll wrap this up shortly. But there is no there is no perfect man. So
That's right.
w- what about when a woman's just frustrated, like he's just dumb, he doesn't make good decisions, or he has a temper, or like just whatever, like how to I mean, it would be great and easy if like, you just had this great masculine,
Oh yeah.
caring, perfect
Yeah.
man. But
Yeah.
what about the hard situations?
Yeah. That's a great question, Andrew. As Orthodox Christians, we are so blessed to have our spiritual fathers, our priests, other men in the church, um, I have had this conversation with some of my clients that she's so frustrated, and I'm not a spiritual. I don't do any spiritual teaching at all in what I do. So because most of my clients are Orthodox, it's very easy for me to recommend that they have their
Mm.
husband go and speak with the priest or together. Most priests should have some experience with premarital counseling and postmarital counseling. So I think that we need to really seek proper guidance in the church, and let's say there's a godfather or someone else in the church that is maybe more equipped to help this type of man who has these
Mhm.
anger issues, or maybe they had similar upbringings or experiences, and they can
Mm.
support each other, because unfortunately women love to have social time with other women and talk it out and talk about their feelings and commune like that, but men typically process their feelings through action, working out, building things, going out to the driving range and shooting guns or golfing or whatever. They're very like action oriented to deal with anger and challenges that they face. But
Mhm.
we're so fortunate for those in the church because we have these spiritual elders that we can go to. And again, I just work with my women. Okay, what can you do to cultivate your own forgiveness toward yourself? Because yes, your husband's not perfect. No man is perfect. Only Christ is perfect, and we are no more perfect. So, what's something that you can do to really nurture your connection with the Lord and ask Him to guide you to to be more understanding toward your husband, and that he could be struggling with someone at work who's treating him
Mm.
poorly, like a manager or someone who's not respecting him. And I don't know. I men, everybody can change. Everyone can change, but they have to have their own willingness. We can't force the desire to change onto anyone. So there have been so many marriages that have struggled, and it looked like it was doomed. And with willingness and self-respect and love for the other person, there is nothing that God cannot help us with. I again, I'm just so grateful that I didn't end up getting divorced, and
Mhm.
all these other couples who have had really hard struggles, but they just needed some support or a little bit of grace, and then like 80% of it is willingness
Mhm.
to fight for the love, fight for that
Yeah.
love that's there.
Well, Allison, it's so clear that this is like a major passion of yours, and that you're not like some grifter online who's just selling a course. I can really tell, and even myself, like I DM'd you with a question before, and you were going back and forth with me, and you're really awesome. So for anyone who's watching this or listening, and maybe wants to get a hold of you and as a mentor, how can they do so?
I would love to hear from you. You can go to my Instagram, A Devotional Heart. I also have a closed private group for women.
Mhm.
It's called Cherished and Adored. It's also on Instagram. There's about 200 of us in there right now. And I give guidance, and I'm going to be posting more videos in there soon. It's a pretty new group. So you can find me there. And my link to my um, link tree that has
Mhm.
my podcast. I have also a podcast and a YouTube channel and a freebie download and all kinds of stuff. It's in my bio on Instagram, and I think it's just adevotionalheart.com. It has a lot of stuff there. And so just send me a DM and let me know what's going on with you. And I love helping people. um, a lot of the women in my cherished and adored community, they'll DM me for guidance, and I'm perfectly happy to do that. It's just that at a certain point, I will
Mhm.
say, let's get on a call, because this is a big issue and we need the full hour. So the first hour call is $50 for the time being. I might be raising that soon, but that's just so I can really listen. 30 minutes of that, I'm just listening to you. And then the rest of the
Hmm.
30 minutes, I'm asking questions and offering guidance and things like that. But don't hesitate. My point is, anyone listening, don't hesitate to send me a DM, let me know what's going on. And if I can offer some encouragement and support, I'd be more than happy to do that for you.
That's great. And there's so much more to talk about. I hope
I
like you're
know.
open to doing another like
I'd love
uh,
to.
chat later. But
Yeah, let's
thanks so
do it.
much again for your time.
Thank you, Andrew. God bless you.